Ever get that feeling like, your phone just like gets you? Like better than some people.
Yeah.
It's like finishing your sentences,
Yeah.
reminding you about stuff you totally forgot you even put in there.
Right.
It's practically like part of you.
Yeah.
Well, get this. There are some philosophers out there, right? And they're saying there's actually something to that feeling.
Mm.
Like, for real.
Mm.
They're saying it's not just that tools influence how we think, but that the tools we use might actually become part of our conscious experience.
Wow.
It's a pretty wild idea, right?
It really is, yeah. And it's the whole deal in this book by Pii Telakivi, Extending the Extended Mind. The idea that our minds extend through using tools. I mean, that's not totally unheard of if you think about it. I mean, even language, that's a tool, right?
Right.
Or like even something simple like making a list for groceries so you don't have to remember everything. That's kind of offloading your memory.
Yeah.
But Telakivi's saying, hold on, it goes further than that.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Mhm.
Where does extending the extended mind go from there? What's the core idea?
So Telakivi's saying, look, if we can accept that tools can be part of our cognitive processes, how we think,
Right.
then why not our conscious experience? Why can't they be a part of how we actually experience being in the world?
Hmm.
It's like saying, if a notebook can be part of your memory,
Yeah.
then couldn't your phone be part of how you see and feel things?
Whoa. Okay, my mind is already bending a little bit here. So how does this whole extended mind thing even work? Where does Telekivi start with this?
Well, they start with this super interesting idea, the leaky body, leaky mind. Basically, it's building on the idea that our body and our mind, they're not totally separate things. They
Right.
work together, they influence each other, the lines are blurry.
Okay, so give me an example. What do you mean my body is leaky?
Okay, well, think about something as basic as vision.
Yeah.
You might think your eyes are just kind of taking in information, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's so much more dynamic. How you move your eyes, turning your head, even your posture, it all shapes what you see and how you understand it. Your brain's taking all that in. Your brain is constantly putting together the info it gets from your senses and from your movements to create the visual experience.
Okay.
So your body and your mind are like collaborating, they're leaking into each other.
So it's not just seeing, it's the doing that shapes how we see.
Exactly.
I never thought of it like that.
And there's more. Neuroscience is showing that when we get really good at using a tool, our brain, it starts to treat that tool almost like it's an extension of our body.
Wow.
Think about a blind person navigating with a cane.
Right.
Their brain integrates that cane into how it maps the body schema, and they experience that cane almost as if it's a part of them.
That's wild. So their brain is saying, this cane is me now. And that changes how they experience the world.
Yes. And it's not just canes either. A musician with their instrument, a chef with their favorite knife, even you with your smartphone. The better you get at using it, the more your brain incorporates that tool into your sense of self.
So, okay, if our bodies are leaky in this way, like we're incorporating these tools into how we see ourselves,
Right.
does that mean our minds are leaky too? If my brain sees my phone as part of my body, is it also part of my conscious experience?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it brings up some big questions, like if my laptop is part of my extended mind, what does that mean ethically, legally? Is hacking my laptop the same as assaulting me? And Telakivi argues this isn't just like a thought experiment, This stuff has real consequences as technology gets more and more a part of our lives.
Whoa. Okay, getting intense.
Yeah.
But let's back up for a sec. There are definitely levels to this whole thing, right? Using my phone to check the weather, that feels different than needing a cane to get around.
Yeah.
So how does Telekivi break down these different levels of extension?
You've hit on something really important there. It's not one size fits all. Telakivi talks about 4 different degrees of extension, and they're not all equal when it comes to this idea of consciousness.
4 degrees of extension. Okay.
Yeah.
So how are they different?
So think of it like it's kind of a spectrum,
Okay.
And on one end, you've got something Telakivi calls transient coupling.
Transient coupling.
Yeah, and this is like, think about using that notepad, right, to jot down a number real quick.
Right.
Use it for a sec, it helps you think, but then you're done. It doesn't change how you experience the world in some big way.
Right.
And then all the way on the other end of the spectrum,
Okay.
you've got what's called functional incorporation. And this is where things get super interesting when we're talking about consciousness, right?
Okay.
This is when a tool becomes so deeply integrated into your life, so essential to how you experience the world and move through it, that it's almost like it becomes an extension of your body.
Gotcha, okay. So, like, that blind person with the cane, if they've been using it for years, that's more like functional incorporation.
Yeah.
Because it's just, like, how they experience the world, it's fundamental to them.
Exactly. And it's not even just that they're using the cane, is that the cane is shaping their senses, their sense of space, how they understand their own body. The way they experience the world is totally different because of that cane.
That's so wild.
Right.
So, okay, this is, like, I'm with you, but I have to admit, it's a lot to take in. Are there other, like, examples that could help us get this whole, like, functional incorporation consciousness thing?
Yeah, definitely. And this is where it gets really cool. Ever heard of sensory substitution technology?
Sensory substitution? Maybe. Kind of rings a bell. What is that again?
So basically, it's tech that lets people experience one sense, but through a different sense.
Right.
Like a common example is using touch, like vibrations on the skin. And that can actually give visual information to someone who's blind.
Hold on, wait. You're saying blind people can see through, like, touch. How does that even work?
It's pretty amazing, actually. There's this thing called a tongue display unit, a TDU.
A TDU.
Yeah, and it basically takes images from a camera and turns them into, it's like a pattern of electrical stimulation, and it goes right on the user's tongue.
Right on their tongue. They can see with their thumb.
Sounds crazy, but yeah. So the person learns to figure out the patterns on their tongue, and they start to experience them as shapes, objects, even where things are in space. And the really wild part is that over time, people using these TDUs, they say they stop feeling those sensations directly.
Hmm.
And instead they actually start to perceive, like, images out there in the world as if they were actually seeing.
That is unbelievable. That is, like, next level. Okay, but so how does that connect to all this? The extended mind, conscious experience, all that?
Well, it's a perfect example of how our brains can adapt. Like, they can take in these totally new kinds of sensory input, and it lets us experience the world in completely new ways. It goes back to this whole idea of enactivism.
Enactivism, right.
Yeah, it's basically like we create our experience of the world through doing stuff, through interacting with our environment, not just like passively taking things in.
Okay, yeah, remind me how that works again, enactivism.
It's like this. We don't just sit back and receive info from the world, right?
Right.
We're out there, we're exploring, we're interacting, and our brains are making sense of everything based on those actions and interactions. Think of like a bat using echolocation.
Right.
They send out those sound waves, then they get the echoes back, and that's how they make sense of their surroundings.
Right. So it's like they're creating their experience through action.
Yes. And sensory substitution, it's like the human version of that.
Yeah.
We're using tech to find new ways of sensing and interacting. And those new interactions, they're actually changing how we experience things, our conscious experience.
Exactly. With this sensory substitution stuff, it's like people are creating totally new channels of senses. Like their brain's saying,
Yeah.
okay, I can't do the regular vision thing, so I'm going to take this tool, this new sensory channel, and use that to create a visual experience. And their consciousness, it's going beyond their body.
Right.
It includes the technology, the information it's giving them. It's part of their experience.
Man, this is making me think about even just my phone in a whole new way.
Yeah.
It's not just a tool. It's shaping how I experience the world. I never even thought about it like that.
That's what Telakivi wants us to see, that it's all connected.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, like, if tech can do this now, what happens is it gets even more advanced, even more integrated into our lives.
Whoa, yeah. Like, are we all going to be cyborgs soon? And what does that mean for what it means to be human, even?
Man, those are big questions, and I don't think there are any easy answers.
Right.
But they're questions we got to be asking. Because that line between us and technology, it's getting blurrier all the time. The more we depend on these external tools and tech, it really makes you wonder, are they becoming part of us?
This has been, like, seriously mind-blowing. So we're already, like, kind of cyborgs, and it's just going to get more, I don't know, intense as tech gets better. But here's the thing that's really tripping me out.
Right.
What you were saying before about dreams, right?
Yeah.
So, like, these experiences that come from inside our heads, doesn't that, like, mess with this whole extended mind idea?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's something Telakivi tackles head on in the book.
Okay.
They're saying, look, dreams, hallucinations, as wild as they are, they're kind of like the exception that proves the rule, you know?
Okay.
Just because our brains can make experiences on their own, that doesn't mean that all experiences are the same or come from the same place.
Okay. So just because I can imagine, like, winning the lottery in super vivid detail, which, by the way, I totally do.
Right. It doesn't mean that me sitting here making coffee checking email, that's all in my head too.
Exactly. Most of our experiences, we've got good reason to believe they're coming from, like, actually interacting with the world, outside our skulls, even if it's our brain ultimately making sense of it all.
Right, okay, that makes sense. But I gotta say, there's still this part of me that's like, what about the speed of it all? Consciousness, it feels so immediate, right?
Right.
So doesn't this whole extended mind thing break down if our tools are too slow to keep up with our brains?
Yeah, that's another big one. People bring that up a lot. Like, consciousness needs super high bandwidth processing, way faster than any tool could ever be, right?
Yeah.
But that also depends on some assumptions that might not be totally right.
Okay, like what?
Well, think about it. Our brains are already dealing with insanely complex, high bandwidth stuff all the time, and we're doing it without any outside help. Take vision, right? Your
Okay.
brain's processing tons of visual information constantly, every second, just to create that smooth, like, what you see around you.
Right, right. So maybe we don't give our brains enough credit.
Exactly. And this enactivist view, remember that.
Yeah.
It challenges the idea that faster is always better when it comes to consciousness.
Okay.
It's saying maybe it's not about the speed so much as it is about this dynamic relationship, the back and forth between us doing stuff in the world and then getting information back from those actions. That's where consciousness comes in.
So it's less about like raw power, more about how well we integrate the info from our tools, from our environment, all of it.
Exactly. It's like as our tools become more seamless, more a part of how we do things, how we sense the world, they really could become part of our conscious experience,
Yeah.
even if they're not like perfectly matched to our brain speed.
Okay, I'm convinced.
Mm.
This extended mind thing, it's not just some philosophy thing. It's about how we see ourselves in the world, especially as tech keeps advancing like crazy.
100%. And it brings up so many questions about what's coming next. If our minds extend through tech, what happens as that tech gets even wilder? Do we expand? Do the lines between our minds even start to blur? It's kind of freaky, but also super exciting to think about.
It really is. It's like the more we dig into this, the more we realize we don't know about consciousness,
Mm.
about tech, about
Mhm.
what it even means to be human in the first place.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Every answer just leads to more questions, makes you want to keep exploring, keep questioning everything about ourselves and the world we're creating.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, this has been an incredible deep dive. Definitely a lot to think about. To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us as always. And until next time, keep those minds open and keep on questioning.